Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Gerald Ryan, if you're out there, it's the middle of your night in the Philippines. My name is Jeff Rolka. Thank you for joining me for the live chant. This is your live event. I don't know why I have my hands in the air. It just kind of happened. Hello, Altug. I was literally just thinking about you. Because you asked that question last week. I guess I'm just gonna dive right in. I don't feel like all this bandying words with subscriptions and things like that. If you've done that, thank you. If not, it'd be great if you could. Hello, Natasha. Hello. Good evening. Good evening. Also, I came across a chart regarding resonances and relative resonances of frequencies as they vary across vowels, and I immediately thought of you. Now, I think you were asking about vocal fold engagement last week. With the different vowels, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Hello, Ali D. Heya. But it was a really interesting chart, and I thought about you as I was looking over that in my book. So yeah, welcome. This is your chat. So if you've got questions, throw them out there. I am of the opinion that if you are wondering about something, someone else is probably wondering the same thing. And this is the forum that we partake of once a week to answer those questions. Hello, Vishek. So shout out, please. It's Harvey. Hello, Coach. Sorry, I know I kind of got distracted immediately. I'm a little distracted this morning. My mind is sort of but hello, it's Harvey, which is an interesting user ID. It's Harvey. It's Harvey. It's like immediately self-explanatory. Who's that? It's Harvey. Let me see here. Ale, do you have any idea on how to express your emotions while singing? Well, that's really cool. Hello, Heidi. Whoa. Make Healer HD. Don't forget to hydrate. Yeah, that's a really, really good point. We must stay hydrated. 33 degrees. Where are you? That is so hot. That's like really hot. And do stay safe. Yes. You're welcome. It's Harvey. That might be the one downfall of that user ID is that every time I say it, I really want to have the facial expression too. It's Harvey. But I like it. Now I'm distracted again. Emotions. That's a really interesting question. And I asked that question once. Similarly, I said I wasn't really connecting with my audience. I didn't feel like they were getting in touch with it. And this is a really famous vocal instructor whom shall remain nameless. And what they said to me was well, you need to really amp up your rhythm. You need to really, really communicate via rhythm. And initially, I thought that was kind of like a sidestepping of the question. But, he made a really good point, which was you don't know what they're thinking on stage, and you don't know what your audience is thinking when you're on stage. You can't control that. But what you can control is the rhythm, and that rhythm introduces an energy into the music. Now, I would take that one step further, and I would say that rhythmical energy can be used to convey information to our listeners, convey emotion. That's what we're talking about here when I talk about information. I'm talking about emotion. So the accuracy of the rhythms or lack thereof all communicate things to our audiences. If you listen to, I can guarantee you that your favorite singers do this. And if we can listen to it, if we really, really tune into what they're doing, we can hear them using those things. But I would expand. I'm so sorry to have to scratch my nose. That's kind of gross, but it's going to happen. But and I would expand that to be not just rhythm, but also dynamics, louds and softs, and where we choose to take breaths, and all of those things. Not to mention facial expressions that Melissa Cross, I think, articulates so well. If you look for some of the videos on her, there's a video of her on David Letterman, which I think is very instructive. This is from ages ago, but she talks about facial expressions in it. So, yes, That's what I think about when I think about expressing emotion. Heidi Banker, hello. Don't forget to say hi, Joe. Thank you. Jason Jouet. Hello, my life has finally slowed down enough to join a live event again. Welcome. Yes, welcome back. Welcome back. Altug, do you have an area in your voice where you can hardly hear yourself when singing? Interesting question, Altug. The problem with that is that often on stage it can be quite, you can get kind of blown out by amps or other environmental factors all the time. Overcoming that, I don't know if I feel particularly like I've overcome it. I feel like it's something I manage well, and it's challenging every time. A lot of it is trusting what you have practiced going into the performance. So if you've done your practice up to that point, and you've really internalized the physical experience of what that line feels like when you sing it, then you rely upon that physical sensation without necessarily being able to hear yourself very well. This is obviously not ideal. It's far from ideal, but it is one of the things that we can do to try to make sure that we're staying in tune and delivering what we've practiced up to that point. The Netherlands. I didn't realize it was so hot there right now. Jason, you know what? It's coming. All my equipment, you've been away for a while. All my equipment, and particularly my piano, has been in transit. And now it's all here, but one, I have to wait for it to settle before I can have it tuned. But two, one of the bolts on the underside of it was stripped, and I'm having a really difficult time finding the part number for the bolt in question. And getting it replaced. I took out insurance on the equipment as it was in transit, but everything is moving like incredibly slow, and it's been incredibly frustrating. If any of you know how to figure out like parts numbers and things like that, it's just a bolt from a Yamaha GB1K is all I need. And by the time I get that bolt and get the foot pedal assembly back in place, I can have it tuned, and then I've got like a ridiculous backlog of videos that I have to do, from extended range warm-ups to more mixed voice things. I really want to do a video now. I feel a bit more comfortable about teaching aspects of different techniques, and so I want to address those as well, which I think you'll find very, very appropriate, considering that most of us are working on, well, a lot of us anyways, are working on popular genres. Altug, what is your lowest note that you use in songs? I try to stay above C3. If I have to, I'll go to B2, but I start to get really not nervous about it. I just prepare for it. But that's one of those, when we start getting on to B2 and A2, there's a certain amount of inconsistency that happens there anyway, and if the stage volume is too loud, then it's very, very easy for me to engage too much and over push those pitches and have issues with them. But then again, I'm kind of even relating that to years and years ago when that was problems. I mean, that hasn't been a problem for me in like 10 years, but I have not forgotten it. Natasha, what was your opinion about the site that was shared about metal singers this week? I don't know if I ever saw that. I'm not sure where it was shared. If it was on Sequencer, I try to keep up with Sequencer, and I know I chimed in on a few comments, but I don't remember seeing that. If it was on Sequencer, maybe point me to it point my direction to it. I'd love to check it out. I used to work with metal singers all the time here in San Francisco, and always enjoyed working with them to try to keep them healthy and using their voices the way that they do. It's Harvey. By the way, have a nice day and God bless you, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Green X Lady. I don't recognize your user ID. Welcome. Hello. I don't know if this has been addressed before, but if one has two singing voices, an opera one and a pop one, would you advise keeping one of them, or would keeping both be fine? I see no reason why you shouldn't do both. I think at some point you may decide that you want to really, really commit to one or the other, but I don't think that's necessarily obligatory. The individuals that I work with who regularly go back and forth between those kinds of genres, you have to. I think there's a couple things to consider. One is that it pays to learn as much as you possibly can about your instrument, about your voice, how it works. It isn't so much that there are two voices per se, but it's a lot about the aperture. In other words, the height of the larynx and the esophagus that's going to dictate airflow. And that will have a lot to do with how the differences in those two genres are phonated when you sing. Additionally, there's vowel considerations and language considerations as well. And the other note that I would suggest to you, I'm thinking of Wynton Marsalis, a very famous trumpet player who was very well known in his early career for doing both classical and jazz. And he would talk about his period of transition. And you may need to be sensitive to a period of transition at some point. So as you become particularly adept, or as your proficiency continues to develop, you may find that your period of transition between the two genres increases. For him, he said it was 6 months. And I suspect that's largely due to the rhythm of things. I think that's often overlooked in our studies, is the rhythmical intricacies that are not notated. There's a feel to pop music, there's a feel to jazz, there's a feel to musical theater, and there's a feel to classical. The way that we interpret rhythm, though it all may appear identical on the page, the written page, we interpret those figures slightly differently, even when it's highly notated. And it's that feel, I think, that begins to take some time to make an adequate transition between. Trinity, praise God. God bless you and your family in the name of Jesus. Thank you, sir. Or madam, I'm not sure. Hello, voice family. That's to you guys. Yes, in-ear monitors are the way. They are absolutely, and I try to advocate for those as much as I possibly can. Because not only do in-ears help you hear yourself adequately on stage, but they also protect your hearing if you get them set up properly. They are absolutely the best. They're wonderful. It's an amazing, incredible experience when they are well adjusted. When they're out of adjusted, it can be just as bad as wedges. But yeah, big 2 thumbs up for in-ears if you can work them into your budget. And they don't have to be like wireless or anything. Like you can get very, very inexpensive wired in-ear setups. Bishy J official, can a bass sing a soprano C? Well, just kind of looking at the piano here. I mean, just kind of thinking, I mean, it's quite a wide range. I mean, who am I to say what's ultimately possible? I'm certain that there's some bass out there in the world that can probably do it. Whether all bass vocalists can, I don't know. It depends on so many factors, not the least of which is the particular individual's willingness to continue to pursue that as a goal that they feel is important. If that's your goal, that's cool. I might suggest to you that there are other things than just singing high. But who am I to say what your goals should or should not be? That's up to you. I would say that airflow is going to be incredibly, incredibly valuable. And it may be that note, it depends also if we're talking about C5 or C6. C5 is more likely to be at the outer extremities of your falsetto range. C6 is quite likely to be a whistle tone, which is really an entirely different way of using the voice than everything that's on my channel. Michael, MTZ. Hi, Jeff. I hope you're doing well. My question is, my singing teacher recently told me to think about a yawning sensation when singing in order for my larynx to be in a more neutral position. Do you think that this is a healthy approach? And if not, how do you personally go about neutralizing a student's larynx? Honestly, that's one of the ways that I will describe it. I might add that you might take your hand and in an extremely light fashion, like barely touching, just lightly be in the vicinity of your larynx, not to control, but to monitor, to lightly feel the motions or feel where things are occurring, because that can help you to monitor where the larynx is, monitor if it's moving or not, and learn to identify what physical sensations are successful in keeping it in a neutral position versus ones that are not. Altug. I mean by saying hard to hear that in the passaggio I feel some notes sound muffled, but when I record and listen they sound okay. The internal experience is different from what a listener hears. Same for me on the low notes. Thank you. You know what? That's a really, really excellent observation, Altug. And that is, and I'm glad that you've mentioned that, because that is almost universally true. When we are in the zona de passaggio, there is often a very distinctly different internal sound to the voice as opposed to what is being heard outside. And over time, that will diminish. I speaking for myself, I cannot say that it is abated entirely. In other words, when I sing above, in the zona de passaggio or above, all of the resonance that's occurring in the oral cavity still has a little bit of a different sound internally than what I hear on the recordings. Yet I've gotten accustomed to it over time, and it doesn't sound as different as it used to. Trinity, Jeff, we appreciate you and we will be patient for you. My prayer is that the Lord will be your help and all needed to reinstate your piano. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate that. I'm sure it's just a bolt, it's just a matter of like getting the right thing and sticking it in there. It's not a big deal, but it's just frustrating. It's just, these things are frustrating because, you download all these manuals off of Yamaha's site and I'm like, okay, well, here's the manual. No parts list. Like, and do a search for parts list. I'm not finding it. I even signed up for Yamaha's, it's Yamaha 24X7, which is like their parts depot where you can order parts for whatever Yamaha thing that you may have. Like, it doesn't matter, right? And they don't even have my piano's model number, even though it's currently in production. So I'm like, okay, whatever. I got to talk to somebody. And you were mentioning how vocal cord tension is changing with different vowels. Yeah. That was very interesting. I should have bookmarked that page so I could grab it. But it was basically, I was working, truth be told, Altug, I was working on something else and I came across that and I sort of made a footnote in my mind to remember to have a look at it to see if in the book he was discussing any types of vocal fold engagement issues. What he was discussing were different vowel sounds and the different resonances and the different formants that occur as you change vowels. And I believe it was on a given pitch, but I'm not entirely sure. But in any case, I just wanted to bring that discussion back up. I did not read it as thoroughly as I might have done, but I have not forgotten, and I will have a further look at that. Jason, the article was talking about how metal singers utilize their vocal folds similar to the way a baby cries. Kids Fringe shared it about 23 hours ago on Sequencer. No, I haven't seen that. I have not been over at Sequencer in the past probably 26 or 28 hours, something like that. Altug, Wynton Marsalis is quite amazing, is he not? And such a cool... I get the impression he's a really cool guy. I don't really know. I have... a while ago, Wynton Brandon Delfio Marsalis became a subscriber to the channel. And I had the pleasure of having some interactions with him, which was really cool. And he was just the coolest dude. Natasha, yes, it was on Sequencer. It was about why metal singers can scream without damaging their vocal cords. Cool, I'll have to check it out. Green X Lady, thank you so much for your advice. I'm really new here and I love your warm-up exercises. Keep up the amazing work. Thank you. I will. And welcome. Sequencer is... Sorry, this is the YouTube live event. We're here every Saturday, 6 p.m. London time, for an hour. Heidi, to those of you who are songwriters, what comes first for you, words or tune? That's a great question. That's intended for you guys out there in the chat, so please chime in. Speaking for myself, for me, it is often a nugget, which is an amorphic assemblage of chords, lyric, and melody that all kind of happen. I rarely think of like a lyrical concept without some rhythm or melodic notion attached to it. More recently, I have been finding that I'm finding that I get more interesting chord progressions when I start with a lyric idea that I sing a melody along to, and then write all that sort of stuff out, and then do the chord, like do the harmonization of it after the fact. So I basically transcribe what I sang and then put chords to it. You're welcome, Michael MTZ. Trinity Preacher, what's the model number again? And Bolt is for the foot pedal. Yamaha, I will try to help. That's very kind of you. The piano's a GB1K, and I can show you. Hold on a second. This is what the assembly looks like. And so what's happened here is that this little disc screws into the bottom of the lyre. And the lyre is the wood assembly that your foot pedals on a grand piano are all kind of housed in. And this thing screws into the bottom of that, and then this goes through the lyre into the piano, and then you just screw it into place. And I don't know if you can see or not, but it's you can see like how it's been stripped. Wrong way there. I'll hold still. The end right here is like it's almost flat. It's been stripped so badly. Anyways, this is the part. And I just that's all I need to get it all sorted out. But I really appreciate that. Thank you. Where am I here? Oh, so the piano's a GB1K. Heidi Bank, Capone at Heidi, Bishy J Official, where is the sequencer page? I think if you just look for sequencer on Facebook, it should come up. If not, I don't, or use the contact page at jeffrolka.com and I can send you a link. That's another way to do it too. Yes, at Natasha Joubert, could you maybe give us a link? That's right. Raven Wolf just came in to say hi on this gorgeous evening and thank you for your awesome vids. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Welcome to why do I want to keep on calling this sequencer? This is not sequencer. This is YouTube. Jason Jewett, do you have a piano repair shop anywhere near your area? Maybe that'd be able to help. I hope you get your bolt. Thank you. Yes. This is okay. So in the realm of like, in the grand scheme of like sort of lifetime issues, this is not a huge issue. But truthfully, I was a little bit disappointed when I got back from the UK. I never really felt like I found a piano technician in the UK that I was really excited about. And my piano tech that I had been working with for years here in the San Francisco Bay Area, I was really, really excited about getting to work with, his name's Paul, getting to work with Paul again. And, I always loved his work. I loved, he's just a great guy, basically. And, but basically he doesn't, my office was in San Francisco before, and now I'm in the East Bay. And he doesn't come to the East Bay, and he wasn't able to help me via email. So I have to figure out a new technician, and I'm just kind of thinking about different people. If any of you have a piano tech in the East Bay area of San Francisco whom you are particularly fond of, I would certainly appreciate the referral. You can use jeffrolka.com's contact sheet and send that over, just so I can check them out and see if it might be good for us to work together. I don't want to make any promises. And I have a few people that I'm looking at right now. I wouldn't say I'm like really fussy about my piano tuning. That being said, there are ways of tuning the instruments that that you can tune them in a variety of different ways, the way that they stretch the octaves and adjust the temperament of the instrument. And Paul just had an incredibly, just his natural way of doing it. Whatever it was he was doing was exactly right for me. And so it was like because of that, I never really learned if there was anything specific he was doing, aside from just doing it really well. Doesn't hurt that he was really, really affordable. I have to be honest with you too. Incredibly affordable. Probably too affordable, really. Thanks, Pony and Jeff. Just wondering. Yes, of course, Heidi. Trinity Preacher, I will look and contact you on Jeff Rolka. Thank you very much. I truly appreciate it. Heidi, how do you approach songs you are asked to sing that are not really your style? Really good question. Initially, the same way I would approach anything, by working through the difficult sections, learning the song. If I have to play and sing, then getting to as great a degree of independence of playing and singing as I possibly can. In terms of how I feel about delivering the music, I rarely find that I'm asked to sing anything that I just don't identify with in any way. But even in those songs that I feel are not my style, I'm always looking for the things that I stand to learn from them and the things that I connect with. I connect a lot with rhythm, probably because I struggled. To say I struggled with rhythm is perhaps too extreme. I didn't feel like I had an incredibly concrete grasp of rhythmical study for a long time. And it was something that I did, but I did not, and with a remarkable degree of precision. But I didn't, to borrow Heinlein's word again, I didn't grok it. I did not grok rhythm. And then I was very fortunate to attend a workshop on rhythm by University of Michigan professor Michael Udow, as a percussion instructor. And, I hesitate to suggest the notion that one can change everything in a matter of a 2-hour workshop, but he really did. Like, he really changed everything for me from that point onward. It's not to say that I didn't have to practice. I did. I had to practice and learn to internalize the concepts that he walked us through in the workshop. But his approach to rhythmical study and the understanding of it changed everything for me moving forward from that point. And that, I find, is something that no matter what it is I'm asked to sing, I find something to learn from, something that I can get excited about. Trinity Preacher at Heidi Banker. Jennifer Joanne Bloomberg. When I sing without my guitar, I don't know what to do with my hands. I am absolutely with you. Tambourines and shakers can be really helpful at those times if it's appropriate for the genre. I would suggest practicing in front of a mirror and see what the important thing here is that it feel authentic. So, I don't know that hooking your thumbs in your back pockets is really appropriate for the stage. But then again, I don't know if, waving your arms over your head is necessarily appropriate either. The thing to focus on is that it feel authentic to you, that it be something that adds to your comfort, while you are performing rather than detracts from how you feel on stage. So, pardon me? So yeah, that can be really tough. I'm thinking back. Oftentimes, if I'm doing backing vocals, I don't have anything in my hands, and in those cases, I'm sometimes at the front of the stage, sometimes at the back. It sort of varies, but that can be really disconcerting. I try to avoid grabbing the mic stand, but oftentimes I'll just have my hands out at my sides, and I've grown to feel pretty comfortable with that over the years. So we start with feeling authentic about it so that it becomes a part of what we do, and then over the years, it just becomes something that we do, and we don't really think about it anymore. Ravenwolf, I like it. Wave them like you just don't care. Altug, how would you approach a passage like A3, C4, G4? Lovely. Well, initially, if I can't sing it at all, like from the absolute beginning, then now I know it probably ascends, but we're going to start with the descending pattern, then we can start to ascend on it too. So that we feel really, really comfortable with it. Depending on how you're navigating the secondo passaggio, then you might try ooh. And you can hear how that F natural as I'm ascending is slightly different. I didn't warm up this morning, bad. And so you can hear how, and I'm drinking coffee and I haven't had like a sip of water for 3 hours. So you can hear how that F isn't quite the same. It's getting better now. And that's right about where my secondo passaggio is. If I'm doing well with that, then I might try E. To get things more consistent, then then finally ascending. Although I guess it goes to the G first, doesn't it? Working slowly over time, working in the vowels that are from the phrase, and then finally getting the lyrics going. Natasha, what is a person's style of singing? Is it the type of styles they usually like? Perhaps. I think when you really get down to it, elements of style are part what the genre dictates and part what the vocalist wants to do. I'm thinking of I think it was Crash Test Dummies. I think that was whom I'm thinking of, and this was a popular sort of an alt rock band from the early 90s. And if you listen to their music, the first thing that you will realize is the person's voice is so low. He has this amazing, beautiful, rich, low baritone bass voice. Pop singers aren't bass. There's an incredibly small list of people who pull that one off. But this person apparently wanted to be a part of the genre, and so they made accommodations in order to be in the popular genre and be a bass baritone. Obviously, if you're a tenor, there's a lot more repertoire for you to sing that will sound like the original artist or similar to the original artist in the popular genres. It's worth noting that in the case of the Crash Test Dummies, of course, one of the things that this person did is form a band and write their own music so that it was in the appropriate range for them. Because oftentimes, if you take Bohemian Rhapsody and you put it into a bass baritone range, it's not going to really sound quite the same. There are limits to how much we can transpose something and still. I mean, I don't know. You would have to try it, really. I would be surprised if it had the same kind of energy and je ne sais quoi. Like, that's something, sometimes there's just something like a Jeff Buckley tune, moving those tunes into a lowered range. I don't know if it would necessarily still carry with it the kind of energy, all things being equal, between the differences in vocal ranges. Bishy J Official, what exercises are good for improving melisma singing or melismatic singing? If you just mean singing melismatically, then I would highly recommend you. Well, basically, almost all the warm-ups on the channel are really, really, really about melismatic singing. All of those connected vowels, all that stuff. If you're talking about like riffs and things like that, then there are some videos for that. It's something else I want to do more of as everything starts to kind of start happening here for me again on a more complete production level. But I would also suggest you check out some of the blues chord change videos, because on those, a lot of them have parts of the video where I'm just playing the changes, and you can practice riffing along in the various keys in the blues at the ends of the video. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes perfect. I don't even know if I can go that far. I would have to say that perfect practice, if there is such a thing, makes it better. There are those moments, though. There are those moments, and they are so memorable when everything is just clicking. And I think that's one of the difficult things about being a popular musician, is that, and I'm speaking from my own experience, yours may vary, but we see it all the time. I mean, Adele seems to be particularly subject to these things where she's popping out her in-ears or having significant problems because there's problems on stage, problems with the monitoring, all these sorts of things. Whatever it is you've done in preparation for the gig, as a musician who's depending on technology, whether it's in-ear monitors or wedge monitors or microphones or amplifiers or the laundry list of equipment that goes into making a pop performance come off. I mean, we're not even talking about computer stuff here, like, let alone getting involved with sequencers, MIDI triggers, MIDI implementation. Like, I've been in a band where we had multiple input sources coming into a sampler, and it was all routed, and everything was assigned different MIDI addresses in order to trigger the individual samples in a given program. I was the one who, I not only triggered samples in the band, but I also did the program changes live on stage while singing lead and playing bass. So it's like the number of things that can go wrong. Like, at one point we went down because we had this MIDI junction box, and we had this in the days before this was a common thing, and it just overheated and burned out. We didn't know about it. So all of a sudden, like, our entire sample cat library was nullified in that moment. There's just so many things that go into making that performance really, really come off. Natasha Joubert, sorry. You have to. The links don't work on YouTube. YouTube doesn't let links go back and forth. So you'll have to Maykiller Kinky HD. Send an email via the jeffrolka.com contact sheet asking for the sequencer link, and I'll hook it up. Yes, that's very kind of you. Thank you for trying, Natasha Joubert. I appreciate that. Heidi Banker, thanks, Jeff. Rhythm is part of the challenge. Part is not being happy with translation or singing in an unknown language. Yeah, I can dig it. And those are significant challenges. Absolutely. Jennifer Joanne Bloomberg, Speaking of backing vocals, I'm a backup singer for the most part. What are some things to think about for being a good backup singer? That's a really cool question. I must say, I love singing backing vocals. It's like one of my favorite things to do. It's like all the wonder and joy of singing without the pressure of being the lead vocalist or the pressure of being the songwriter or any of those things. Not that I dislike those things. I write music every day. And I'm getting very excited about starting to produce some new recorded material. But man, being a backing vocalist is just like a wonderful, wonderful thing. If you're doing it a lot, you've probably already intuited much of what I'm about to say. But if not, one of the things that I have found particularly helpful is always let the lead singer have the end of the phrase. So you might keep your ear on them as carefully as you can. And as you hear them phrasing and trailing off, coming to a close on their vocal line, just try to beat them by a millisecond so that they have the end of the phrase. Unless you have a lot of rehearsal time where you can really dial in your releases. This goes doubly if they have hard consonants like K's or T's at the ends of the words. Let them have that. And you trail off on the vowel, let them complete it. Again, unless you and the lead vocalist can definitively agree on the count that you are releasing. So you can turn to each other and say, look, we're off on the and of 3. And everyone's like, yes, we're off on the and of 3, done. And that's cool. Like that will end up being a more professional, that will be like a really crisp and cool way. It will sound incredibly like a unit. It will be awesome. But failing that, let them have it. You might even hedge your bet on that, let them have it by a millisecond anyway. Being a backing vocalist is all about blending, so a somewhat lighter adduction of the vocal fold can be nice. So whereas if you were singing your own lead part, you might be singing more of like a fully adducted, very resonant and well-balanced tone. You might hedge to the side. Again, depending on the appropriateness of the genre, you might back off the adduction ever so slightly. I'm not really changing the volume, but I'm changing how closely the vocal fold is adducting. It's introducing a slight amount of softness or airiness into my voice. It's barely audible, probably, although I would assume you could hear that. A more extreme version, though I would not recommend it, as a general rule, would sound like this. Where I'm really starting to separate the vocal fold. That can let the lead really define the characteristics of the ensemble vocal sound, and I think is appropriate for us as backing vocalists. I think that's part of like the job description. And finally, again, this goes without saying, but the lead vocalist rules the roost as far as vowels and their modifications or lack thereof. So however they define their vowels, I feel it's on us to match them. Heidi Banker at Trinity, Jason Jewett, Crash Test Dummy. That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. Natasha Joubert, thank you, Jeff, because I like all types of music from metal to classical. Brilliant. Very cool. Altug, at which note do you start utilizing mixed voice? Okay, that's a really cool question, Altug. And here's the thing. Technically speaking, that's G3. And at that point, my cricothyroid muscles are activated at a value not, greater than 0. So anywhere below that, there's very little, if any, cricothyroid activity. As I ascend beyond that, the cricothyroids are beginning to like be in the game here. Now, most of us think of the mix as a specific location in each of the vocal fa. I don't know if this is really fosh or fock. It was brought to my attention by a client of mine, and you know what? I don't know. It's a German system, so like Bach, I assume that FACH is like Fach. Anyway, we start to really notice activity in the cricothyroid muscles around the primo passaggio, and for me, that's about C4, C sharp 4, give or take. So as I ascend into there, my cricothyroid muscles are getting more and more activated as I approach my secondo passaggio. Now, as I get to A flat major, that E flat on the top, if you're going to start hearing more of that changing where the cricothyroids are really starting to elongate the vocal fold. And right about there is where it starts to feel really wobbly if I don't maintain my engagement and airflow. But all of that above that point, there is a very good amount, a very good degree of cricothyroid activity that's occurring. I didn't cross the secondo passaggio quite there yet, but that area between C4 and F sharp 4, that is the zona de passaggio for me. That is what I would refer to as in the mix. Most people talk about mix, and I don't think I articulated this very well in the video, I'm afraid, which I meant to, but I didn't do it, which is that most people talk about the space above the secondo passaggio as the mix range. And in truth, if we're going to call that the mix range, then we also need to talk about everything below C4 for the tenor range as mix as well, because again, the cricothyroids start to activate around G3, quite lower than the primo passaggio. So the mix range, when I am speaking of it, I am referring to the zona de passaggio, the area between C4 and F sharp 4. Above F sharp 4, or above the secondo passaggio, I am referring to that as head voice or cricothyroid dominant singing. Below C4 is thyroarytenoid dominant singing. This is relatively new information as of about 2 years ago. It was discussed at length at the NATS conference. The problem is that head voice, falsetto, mixed voice, these terms get used by all these different schools of voice. And the bottom line, I suppose, isn't so much whether one's right or wrong, it's just to know what you're talking about when you're talking to someone about it. And again, I wanted to get that across in the video as well, too. And I don't think I did quite as good a job as I had wanted to. But I hope that answers your question, Alto. Caponi, what notes are baritone's middle voice notes? Generically speak, my golden notes. I love it. Depending on your baritone qualities, let's say D4, E flat 4 is the secondo passaggio. That's going to mean that a perfect fourth below there, so B flat 3, A3 is around the primo passaggio. That's the zona de passaggio for your Fach. Danielle, hi Jeff, how you doing, my friend? Sorry to come here late. Better late than never, pardon me. Better late than never. I'm doing much better. I don't know how well it gets communicated to you all, but I get so excited for these events, and I really get a lot of energy from doing these things. And so when I started today, I was feeling kind of, but I'm feeling much more energized right now, and I'm doing quite well. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much. I will take you up on that. In the Netherlands, I think. Ger Arroyo, hi Jeff. I just have a question. I would like to learn to like opera, but I really don't know how to lower the larynx. Okay. I find your question confusing because if I read it out, it just says I'd like to learn how to like opera. And to that, I don't know how. I mean, that comes down to finding something in opera that you feel you are attracted to. And to that effect, I would suggest you listen to a wide variety of singers singing a wide variety of operas. Opera is kind of like it's kind of like a sports car. All the parts on a Bugatti Veyron, you can't buy those off the shelf. They're really specific. Okay, I don't know anything about Bugatti Veyrons, just truth be told, but I'm assuming that in a car with 11 radiators, you don't generally go to like Mako and find the parts for that. I could be entirely wrong, but that's what I'm going with it anyways as an analogy. So these are all incredibly specialized parts. Or, hey, here's one for you. The Valkyrie XB70, I think it was, which was like a 1960s crazy fast supersonic bomber that the U.S. Air Force was working on. There was only like 2 or 3 ever built, and one crashed, and like everything on that plane was like handmade and bespoke made for that aircraft. And opera is kind of like that. Different periods of opera, different operas, different vocalists interpreting said differences, like creates a wide variety of disciplines within the genre. And you might just have to have a listen around to see what you like. And then you will, out of that, find more things that you can appreciate. Lowering the larynx initially begins with some muscle control internally, but ultimately we want it to be released. That takes time and practice. If you want to lower the larynx, I would start by addressing my airflow and vowel alignment in my chest voice range. That will help you develop release and a neutral type of phonation for your voice that will allow you to cultivate the kind of release of the musculature that will let you move towards an operatic delivery of your voice. But if you try to force the larynx into position, well, that's just muscle strain of a different kind, and that's not going to generate the kind of operatic tones that will make you successful in that genre. Jennifer Joanne Bloomberg, this was very interesting, especially your thoughts on backup vocals. Thank you. You're very welcome. Hi, Jeff. What aria or artists would you recommend for my alto voice? Goodness me. I'd have to like look a little bit further. I mean, if you're new, then you could start with the Vakai method. It's just kind of lovely, reasonable range art songs. It's available in multiple different key areas so that it's in the right vocal range for you. And it's just generally like pleasant stuff. Carl Mio Bien is in there, and there's all kinds of beautiful songs. They're just fun. It's just fun to sing out of that. Beyond that, I'd want to know a bit more about where you're at, what you're trying to achieve, and all that kind of stuff. But the Vakai is a pretty safe start. Karina, hello. And hello, everybody else. Karina says hi to you all. Altug, in falsetto, hooty, airy sound. At high notes, is cricothyroid active? I would say yes. There's usually what you get with that is some dampening of the vocal folds, some separation, and elongation as well. So it's quite the hodgepodge of things. I'm going to do a video where we're making some transitions between all that in the not too distant future, which I think you will find quite instructive. If not helpful, it makes it clear how these things work together, I think. At least from a sensational, from the way the sensations of it sort of standpoint. Chris, I'm late. Hi everyone. Hope you didn't miss me too much. Welcome. Better late than never. Karina, how can I sound more focused? I collapse at the finishing line. Very interesting. Very interesting. You know what? One of the ways you can practice that, is like, let's say you've just got a vocalization. Give me a second here to just have a little. I need to be very diligent about having a little sip of water before I sing something. Otherwise, I croak. So let's say you've got like a line, right? You're just doing your warm-ups. Let's say that that's all that's playing in the recording, or if you're playing it. You can hear I add a little neighbor note at the very end of it. If you're collapsing at the end of your line, you're almost certainly allowing some amount of muscle engagement or airflow to abate too soon. You're anticipating the end of your phrase, which isn't entirely bad, but we can't anticipate it physically. If we let go of the muscle engagement, then we'll collapse. So you have to practice singing past the line, and then come back and do your warm-up as written. And with practice and attention to it, you may even find that just by focusing on it, you can sing through the phrase adequately. But that's a pretty quick way to work on that, is just practice singing beyond the line. Put a little neighbor note in the end there. Chris, I am new to this. Welcome. Yes, better late than never. Netherlands indeed. Right, I remembered. I try to remember those things. Ger Arroyo. Sorry, I went sing, laughing out loud. Sorry. Oh, meant sing. Oh, okay, right. Well, then I answered that question. Cool. Chris, as a tenor, should I sing in mixed voice in A below middle C, or C, or chest? Well, that's your thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice. So tenors, the cricothyroid muscles are active, but you should really be in thyroarytenoid dominant. That's your chest voice. Getting on to C4 is the beginning of the zona de passaggio, or what I call the mix range. And then F4, F sharp 4 is going to be the secondo passaggio. And above that, you are truly in cricothyroid dominant singing voice, which is commonly referred to as head voice. Divis, G, Sonia, hi, and hello to you. I can't get hydrated today. Any tips? I don't know. I'd be very careful with that. If you're feeling really thick, I assume that what you're reporting here is that you're feeling really thick around the vocal folds. I would question whether or not you've had any caffeinated or alcoholic beverages within the past hour, and if so, you may have to wait a little bit. If you've had any really hot beverages, that can sometimes do that too. Can you tell me a bit more? Karina Chen, any tips on singing the song I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston? Can you be more specific, Karina? What exactly are you asking about that song? I mean, that could be almost, there's high range, there's, in Whitney's version, I haven't listened to it in, I don't know, a year probably, give or take. I have to assume there's some amount of ornamentation. We have to be more specific on that. Karina, I use the Vakai method to say, I don't know if I would say I teach it or not, but I'm thinking of the songs from the method, from the method book, and I use them from time to time with people that wish to work on them. Goodbye, Trinity. Thank you so much for all your input today, and just as always, it's always good to see you pop up. Wonderful. Do that warm up, Greg. Hey, Jeff, in the past few days, I've gotten some pain in my soft palate. Do you know what I might be doing in my singing to cause this? I wonder if you have any little post-nasal drip. That's what I'm wondering about, because that's where I get that happening. That's my immediate thought. Give me a little bit more on that one. Tell me what's going on. Aditha Pishler. Hi, Jeff. Most of the time I sing, I got dryness throat. Well, certainly stay hydrated. Watch your intake of caffeine and alcohol in proximity to your singing. if you're drinking a lot of tea or anything like that, you may also investigate what's in those teas and whether or not they are having an impact on it. Editha, you wouldn't happen to be in Germany, would you? My at Editha. Divis. Jeff, I sent you a message on Gmail, but you don't reply. My question was, is it good to practice 2 or more times a day? Sorry to be late. No worries. Yeah, I'm having a hard time keeping up with everything. And Gmail will also like group things together, and I don't always see everything. And if it gets deleted, then it deletes the entire thread. Twitter is becoming a better means by which to ask quick questions and things like that, because it keeps everything isolated and it just comes up as a notification. So I do apologize. Do move on to Twitter. Sometimes I just don't get to things for several days at a time, and that's something else too. So where was I? Yeah, but tour. I thought I mentioned that. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. I don't know. 2 or more times a day, absolutely. Practicing in shifts is great. Love practicing in shifts. Chris, that makes sense. I'm struggling with going back and forth between mix and chest, and my breathing is bad. Okay. Altug. So the secondo passaggio is the last note of the passaggio zone, the zona de passaggio. Yes, that is correct, Altug. It might be the coffee combined with the heat in this room. I should get a humidifier for this room. Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, coffee will do that. You'll notice in our event here today, I'm drinking coffee, but then in between times when I'm singing for you, I'm conscious of taking a sip of water. And I'm not really going into my upper register at all. And that's quite deliberate. Heidi, bye. Thank you. Natasha, thank you once again, Jeff, for a live event. You're very welcome, Natasha. Thank you for joining us today. Greg, I haven't been sick, but I did have a couple of just fun singing days where I might have pushed a bit higher than I should have. I got sharp pain in the soft palate that lasted a day or two, which was new. Yeah, I mean, well, you've kind of answered your own question. You know, if you had that sharp pain, I mean, you may have, who knows what you could have done up there. You might need to see an ENT. And if it persists, then I would absolutely recommend you do that. Since you're reporting a traumatic incident, I wonder about like a strained muscle or something to that effect. But I've pushed my voice high before and never gotten this specific thing before. Yeah, well, sometimes we push just a little bit too much. How long do you do warm-up exercises each day? It varies. Usually not less than 15 minutes. I have a propensity to do warm-ups and warm-ups and warm-ups and warm-ups and warm-ups because I really like them. So I try to cut myself off at a half hour. I don't always succeed. Heidi Banker is saying thank you to everyone. Altuk is saying thank you, and I'm going to say thank you too. Great live event. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. I look forward to seeing you next week.